Hi, hello, and welcome to a new video of mine. Today we are going to be watching a recommendation of one of my subscribers. Thank you so much for the recommendation. I am super interested to get into today's video because it is about the UK's constitution. And I have heard so many things about it, some of them contradictory though, so I'm very excited to see what's actually true. And I hope the channel TLDR is going to help me out with that. Thank you so much for creating this video. Also, please bear in mind this is 6 years old. I don't know how accurate it will be nowadays. I hope it is, but that's something that you can help me out with, I guess. After you've seen the video, you can tell me how accurate it actually is or still is. So let's learn something about the UK's constitution, shall we?
Recently, we asked our Patreon backers what video topic they'd like to see tackled next, and there was a clear winner: the UK's complicated, non-existent constitution explained. So here we are making that video. If you'd like a say in the videos that we make, then sign up to donate from as little as $3 a month. On top of getting a say in our video topics, you can also get exclusive merchandise, discounts on our store, early access to some of our videos, and behind the scenes content. In fact, if you'd been subscribed, you would have got this video a day early. Find out more at patreon.com/TLDR news. We've actually talked about the UK's constitution a number of times recently. Brexit in many ways has been a good test of the UK constitution, with Brexit really pushing the edges and setting new precedents. Most notably, there are a lot of comments on our video when Speaker of the House of Commons John Bercow used old parliamentary practice to stop May from bringing back her deal. This is really tied to the idea of the UK's constitution, and, well, let's say that the comments from that video suggested that there might be some confusion about whether or not the UK has a constitution, so we thought we'd make a video to clear that up.
That's so cool that they're talking about this, because this is what I meant when I said I got contradictory comments. When I watched another video that touched on this topic briefly, I got comments saying that there is no constitution in the UK, other people saying that there is a constitution but it's not written, other people saying that there is a constitution and something's written but not actually. So I'm quite confused at this point in time. I know you guys always want to help out in the comment section, but sometimes it's kind of hard when there are so many comments saying the exact opposite. I'm curious what is actually true, to be honest. And I love that they're talking about this. Thank you so much for this recommendation. This is gold.
While it's true that the UK doesn't have an explicit, written constitution with a capital C, like the US for example, the UK does have an unwritten or uncodified constitution.
Okay.
This is relatively rare in modern politics. Only the UK, Israel, Saudi Arabia, New Zealand and Canada have uncodified constitutions. And the last two only have uncodified constitutions because they used to be British colonies, and so their political systems are based on the UK system. The UK's constitution draws from four main sources: statute law, common law, works of authority, and conventions. Statute law is probably the most important part of the UK's constitution. Statute law refers to acts passed by Parliament. Not all acts passed by Parliament are constitutional. Generally only those that affect how Parliament or the judiciary function, or the ones that affect the relationship between the individual and state, are considered constitutional. A recent example of such an act might be the Constitutional Reform Act. There's a clue in the name there, which passed through Parliament in 2005, creating the UK's Supreme Court. Now, we don't want to get too bogged down in any legal stuff, mainly because no one at TLDR News is a lawyer, but this concept has been recognised in UK law.
Also, it's quite hard for me to understand because I'm not a native speaker and they're using all those legal words that I'm not familiar with, but I'm trying to get the gist of it. Due to the fact that I'm always watching like political stuff from the US, I do know most of those terms, but they're also talking very fast, so I have to kind of be very concentrated on what they're saying.
Now, we don't want to get too bogged down in any legal stuff, mainly because no one at TLDR News is a lawyer, but this concept has been recognised in UK law. In 2002, in the famous Metric Martyrs case, Lord Justice Laws, the judge who was ruling on the case, declared that certain acts, namely the Parliament Act and the Human Rights Act of 1998, were constitutional statutes, which could not be implicitly repealed by a new law that contradicts them. A similar thing happened in 2012, when Lord Hope, ruling on a different case, held that the Scotland Act can only be expressly repealed, it cannot be impliedly repealed. That is because of its fundamental constitutional nature. Implicit repeal is when an old act is effectively ignored once a newer one passes through Parliament and contradicts the old act. The old law doesn't have to actually be repealed in parliamentary time, and is just ignored in the future, or implicitly repealed. On to the next source of the Constitution, common law, also known as case law. This refers to legal precedents created in particular cases that are not enshrined in statute law. A good example of this is the infamous Factor Tame case. This is when Spanish fishermen brought a case against the UK Parliament, who were demanding that ships in UK water had to have majority British owners. The European Court of Justice ruled that this Act of Parliament contravened EU law, and therefore had to be suspended, setting the precedent that the EU's law superseded UK law. Alright, so if you're still with us, the next source of the Constitution are works of...
I'm still with you, but it's complicated. I gotta give you that. And I think I will have to watch another video on this topic that is a little bit easier to understand and maybe starts from the perspective of a beginner. Because again, sometimes I feel just like a first grader thrown into a class with 5th graders, and I'm like, okay, I'm not getting there, but I'm trying my hardest to understand.
Alright, so if you're still with us, the next source of the Constitution are works of authority. These are well-known constitutional books or documents, such as Bagehot's The English Constitution, the Magna Carta, and A.V. Dicey's Introduction to the Study of the Law and the Constitution, which introduce the concepts of parliamentary sovereignty and rule of law. These are not legally binding, but often hold huge political weight, and has historically shaped the way that the UK's political system has developed. The most recent candidate for a work of authority is the Cabinet Manual, written by Gus O'Donnell while he served as Cabinet Secretary, the highest post in the civil service, in 2010. It sets out the main laws and conventions which affect how the government operates. We've left a link to the PDF in the description below if you want to check it out. Now for conventions. The Cabinet Manual we just mentioned describes conventions as rules of constitutional practice that are regarded as binding in operation but not in law. Despite the fact there's no legal punishment for breaking a convention, they are almost always adhered to by politicians. There are lots of constitutional conventions, some of which you will never need to know or hear of, but there are some main ones. The Salisbury Convention is the convention that the Lords don't block bills that were in the party's manifesto. This convention was created after Labour's landslide in 1945. When Labour won that general election, only 16 of the 761 peers sitting in the House of Lords were Labour affiliated, so the massive Conservative majority could effectively block any legislation it felt like blocking. Lord Salisbury, the Conservative leader in the House of Lords, recognised how ridiculous this situation would be, and agreed that the Lords wouldn't block any legislation laid out in Labour's manifesto. It used to be that the
Wow, okay, I gotta pause real quick. My brain needs to comprehend. I kind of do understand now why I had so many contradictory comments, because this is really complicated. And I think some people do know more about this and some people do know less. And that's why some people say there is no constitution, there's no written constitution, there is a written constitution, and all those opinions are floating in the air. And now I think I do get why, because it's just so complicated. And I don't know if you learn this in school in the UK. Like, do you learn about this very system? Or how, if you live in the UK, do you even know it? That's the first question. Like, do you even know this if you're living in the UK? In this explicitity, like that there are those 4 very important parts. Do you know that? Like the general person in the UK? And if you do know that, where did you learn it? And how? Did you learn it by yourself, through the internet, because of your job maybe? Or did you learn it in school already? I guess if you learn it in school, it's gotta be explained a little easier for you. Because for me as an outsider, this is really complicated. And we do not have an easy law in Germany either.
laid out in Labour's manifesto. It used to be that the power to declare war or take military action was solely in the hands of the Prime Minister. In 2003, Tony Blair did ask for Parliament's approval before he went to war in Iraq, But he made it clear that he was probably going to do it anyway, because he had the royal prerogative to do so.
What?
In 2007, after the Iraq War hadn't gone all that swimmingly, Gordon Brown decided to set a new convention, that the government requires the backing of Parliament before it can declare war, or engage in significant military action.
That's good.
You might now see why some people get a bit worried about an uncodified constitution. It's held together by conventions that can be broken, acts of parliament that can be repealed or changed, and some ancient books that don't actually have any legal weight. So what's to stop some tyrannical government from flipping all of this on its head and turning the UK into some totalitarian dystopia? Well, legally nothing, to be honest. But this never seems to happen, touch wood. There are enough checks and balances along the way, and conventions and so on hold enough political weight to prevent a complete upheaval. In fact, when you look around the world, having an uncodified constitution that's flexible to change and allows for organic modernisation might actually be an advantage. The UK doesn't have any insane, outdated rules that are constitutionally entrenched.
That's so true. I got a comment about that when I said, well, but I don't think it's really good for a country not to have a constitution or not to have a written constitution. But they said, yeah, but look at your constitution and how old it is. And did it get changed like in the last 10 years or so? And yes, it did. However, you do need a big majority of people voting for a change, which is good because it helps preventing, or at least that's what they try to do, it helps preventing a dictatorship. Not one person can just say, okay, this is outdated now, I'm going to change that. You need 2/3. Otherwise, you won't be able to do anything. And yes, it's out of date sometimes. That's true. However, having the security or having more security when it comes to protecting the country from a dictatorship. And then again, I got a comment talking about that topic that the US also has a constitution and it didn't help them at all. Like, look where they are now. And they do have a constitution. So if there is a man giving 0 fucks for a constitution, it doesn't matter if it's there or not. So I guess there are two sides to everything. There are arguments for a constitution, there are arguments against the constitution, and every country has to do what they think is best for their country.
And we don't have an unelected judiciary making important constitutional or political decisions. Anyway, that tops it off for this video. This is one of the first videos we've done on political theory, so if you've enjoyed it, make sure to comment below and tell us what you'd like us to cover. Equally, if it didn't interest you at all, and you prefer we stick to the winning formula of endless Brexit videos, then tell us that in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to be kept up to date when we post more videos.
Yeah, subscribe to them.
Also, you can find exclusive content, including extra bonus bits from this video, on our other social channels.
Go and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in those kind of videos. They seem to be really interesting. Maybe I'm going to watch more of them. Like, what does the speaker do? I don't know. Why is the House of Commons so unruly? Never heard of that before. The UK's complex non-existent constitution. Oh, they have another video on that topic. How do laws get passed by Parliament? Oh, that's something that I would love to know. So I'm going to watch more videos from this channel, definitely, because it has really cool topics and I can learn something from them. I just hope that not all of their videos are as complicated as today's, because this was a really complicated video for a non-native speaker who doesn't know much about the country yet. Practically what I have learned today, it's complicated. Maybe some of you can help me out in the comments down below and explain it in a much easier and condensed way for me to understand as a beginner. And please be kind in the comments. I'm trying to learn. Please always remember that. Sometimes I do get comments, just real quick, I gotta talk about this, because sometimes I do get comments from people telling me how stupid I am because I don't know stuff. I just want to tell you that it would be really boring for you to watch a reaction on a topic of a video that I already know. Like, if I would watch stuff about the US politics, for example, or stuff about the German politics that I already know, it would be really boring for you. And I wouldn't learn anything because I already know what they're gonna say. So on this channel, I'm always going to watch videos to stuff that I don't know yet, because otherwise this channel wouldn't make any sense, would it? So if you already started commenting like how stupid can you be, please always bear in mind that I do know so many things, but I'm not going to watch reactions for them, which should be common sense if you think about it. Thank you so much for watching this video together with me though. Please help me out a little in the comments maybe, or I'm gonna just watch other videos about this. And thank you so much for the recommendation again. I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye.